podcast. Yeah, the Steve Gunner podcast. You're tuned in to the Steve Gunner podcast. Get up, it's the Steve Gunner podcast.
All right, welcome to another episode of the Steve Gunter podcast, where we discuss the steps, the strategies, and the mindset of real estate investing tailor-made for the pro athlete. I'm your host, Steve Gunter, and it's an honor and privilege to be with you today. Look, folks, I am here with another special guest, Max Vigliotti. He is a 14-year real estate veteran, a former collegiate baseball standout at Stonehill College, a member of the Compass Sports and Entertainment Division serving the Boston, Massachusetts market. Max has represented high-profile pro athletes who played for the Red Sox, the Celtics, and New England Patriots. Damn those Patriots, man. Damn those Patriots. And today he calls South Boston home. He enjoys fishing, and above all, he's a good man, my man. Max, it's an honor to have you on today, my man. Thank you so much, sir.
Appreciate it, man. Wow, what an intro right there. I appreciate that.
Look, man, we got to do it right for you.
Man, that was good. That was good. I appreciate you, brother. Well, thank you for having me. I've been, you've been doing this pod for a while, and I'm like, man, I got to get on there, man.
Yeah,
so you do a great job. So it's actually a privilege to be on your podcast. So,
well, thank you so much for saying that, man. Really, it's a pleasure to have you. I'm just thrilled to go deep with you and talk about so much as it pertains to business, real estate, and your overall experience. You have so much to share about the Boston market, about the luxury market, about working with pro athletes. I mean, you are a wealth of insight. And so I'm really looking forward to digging into that. But before I do, I've heard something about you, man, that we got to address. I got to bring this up, my brother.
All right.
Look, I heard that one of your fashion don't do's is wearing white socks with black dress shoes. I thought Michael Jackson made that fashionable, bro. What's up with that?
I don't know where you dug that up from, but that is true. I'll tell you a funny story. It was because I was in high school, and one of my buddies, by the name of Mike Hickey, he lives in Portland, Maine. He's actually a college football player. But anyways, one day I was wearing black shoes with white socks, and he pulls me aside. He's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "You never wear white socks with black shoes." So I'm like, ever since then, I'm like, you know what, you're right. So, I got called out at one point, so that's why I don't do it. I know Michael Jackson probably made it famous, but
that's right.
Black shoes, black socks.
Look, Max, one of my early childhood memories is wearing black shoes with white socks. And I used to also rock the tail in the back. You remember those days?
Oh yeah? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, man. I used to rock the tail in the back. I remember going to church with black shoes and white socks, black pants, and I had my tie on. And look, I feel like I was doing the thing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, I was popular back then,
Yeah.
Listen, did you have it braided up a little bit too?
Oh, yeah, it was braided.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Did you have one?
No. There was a guy in my neighborhood, though. There was a guy in my neighborhood who had one. But sometimes he had it as a little puff, too. So
yeah. That's right. That's right.
I tell you what, I remember those vividly.
Yep. That's real good, man. Yeah. Real good. Well, look, man, let's dive in, man. You right. entered, Max, the real estate market at a very interesting time. Towards the tail end of the Great Recession. That's about the same time that I entered the market as well.
Yep.
What were the market conditions at that particular point in time? In Boston, and how did you navigate through that?
Great question. So I got my license 2009.
Yeah.
Right before 2010. Obviously, coming off of the market crash, the housing crisis, and in Boston, typically Boston in general is a very traditional market, right? You have not a lot of areas to build. It's a smaller city. So prices, they hold very well, and they consistently go up, appreciate year after year, right? So during that time when I got in, you had a lot of inventory, right? A lot
Mm-hmm.
more inventory to buy, and then you had a lot more, and you had a lot less buyers, so a lot more people couldn't get financing. So things were moving a little bit slower. You had a lot of inventory, and then you had not that many qualified buyers. But
Mm-hmm.
as in any city, you have investors. People came in with cash, started snapping up all those units. And over
Mm-hmm.
time, as the market got better, there was more favorable market conditions.
Yep.
Inventory started getting very, very, very tight. Right, for you could argue for 10 years, inventory was creeping down, creeping down, creeping down. So
Mm-hmm.
now in the market, we have the kind of the opposite. We have very low inventory, and we have um, buyers that are kind of are locked into their old rates, right?
Yep.
Their old homes,
Yep.
and then you have people that are kind of priced out of entering the market. So it's like
Mm.
there's like some pull there too.
Yep.
So but any city, Boston is very, transitional. People come and go regardless. So, you know,
Mm.
it's still a good market. It's just things are moving just a little bit different.
Right.
You know?
Right. 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 Very interesting, and it's funny you talk about what that market climate was like because not that it's funny, it's just it's just reminds me
Yeah.
of what the market was like here as well.
Hmm.
And the inventory levels were extraordinary.
Yep.
Man, I can remember, Max, I cannot recall the exact number of months of inventory we had on market at the time, but I want to say that it had to be at least 24 months worth of inventory.
You, yeah, I'm
And
sure there was.
and to that point, everybody was selling their home at a discount.
Yep.
And at that time too, there were a number of short sales on the market.
Hmm.
And so for the audience who do not know what short sales are, that is when a home sells for less than what the home is actually worth. And
Correct.
then there's a difference that is owed to the bank. And oftentimes the bank would agree to that lesser amount, and on some occasions they may actually decide to allow that difference to be income to that seller for the year, and so they could just kind of file it on their taxes for the year
Hmm.
as income. And it's crazy when you think about it in that way,
I
but
know.
that was that those were the conditions.
Hmm.
Those were the conditions. But talk to me a little bit about um, what did you learn during that time period getting into the business? Because when you got into the business, Max, it wasn't all roses, man. You know what
No.
I'm saying? Like, you had to learn how to hustle, how to
Yep.
do business. What did you learn?
So you nailed it. It's hustle, right?
Yeah.
And luckily for me, I got into the business with a company, and a lady who gave me a shot. And
Mm,
she was, it's funny. I was working at a company out of school, and doing sales. I pretty much got fired from my first job out of school, right? So I'm like, I got
mm,
to figure something out here.
yeah.
I was at a charity event with some friends, and I ended up meeting one of the top brokers in Boston. And we chatted. She said, what do you do for work?" And I said, "I'm in between jobs." She's like, "Basically, you don't have a job." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right. I don't have a job." So
Right.
she took me under her wing. She says, "If you want to get in real estate, get your license, and when you get your license, give me a call." So fast forward maybe a few months later, got my license. I had her business, saved her business card. Got my license, called her up. We had a lunch, and she brought me in. She said, "Okay, show up on Monday." And what she did was she introduced me to every agent in the office. right? Because I was young. She was like, "Listen, I have an assistant already, but I can introduce you to other agents in the office." And at that
Mm-hmm.
time, it was in the Back Bay office, right, really pretty much down the street from where our Compass office is, right on Newberry Street. And I went in there, and I was doing odd jobs for every agent in the office. So maybe one
Mm.
agent I was doing smoke inspections, one agent I was doing, filing paperwork. A couple other agents, they were giving me their rental listings, right? So I was doing rentals, learning the streets, kind of hustling around,
Mm-hmm.
um, and then doing, picking up little things from kind of everyone in the office, hustling. And then, obviously, real estate is a lot of learning on the go, right?
Yep.
Somebody can tell you, hey, this is how you do something, but until you're in that environment, you're in that situation, you're not going to know how to handle it. But you learn a little bit, you learn the streets, you learn the lingo, and then all of a sudden, hey, maybe these renters, maybe they rent again, maybe
Mm-hmm.
they turn into a buyer, right? They
Mm-hmm.
turn into a buyer, then they turn into a seller. So it kind of all grew from there. But
Mm.
honestly, it all started out in the Back Bay office at Gibson Sotheby's with Beth Dickerson and the Back Bay team doing odd jobs. And I was lucky because it wasn't only her, but that office was filled with a whole bunch of top producing brokers in the city.
Mm.
And they were doing business all across the city in every neighborhood outside the suburbs, wealthy suburbs. So I got to learn a lot from
Mm-hmm.
a lot of good agents. And when I really take a step back and think about that, I realized how lucky I was, because I've spoken to some people, and they'll say, yeah, like I never really I didn't have a mentor, or people where I work, they were out to like get you, or
Mm-hmm.
the work environment that we were in was very conducive to like helping and wanting people to succeed, because if you succeed, the office is succeeding. So,
Right. Right.
and it was, and I learned that, very early on in the business. So I feel like that was my foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And interesting point that you made
Yeah.
was while you were doing these odd jobs, so to speak,
Yeah.
for agents, you were also building relationships. and
Exactly.
and that was one of the things that I noticed about you recently. You and I, we were at a charity event in Naples, Florida, which was really fun, by
Man,
the
that was
way.
honestly, I mean, I was coming, it took me a few days to come off that high, man. That was amazing. I love that trip,
Oh man, it was
you
so
know?
fun. It was so many good people, and so much money raised
Yeah.
for great causes, and it was just all around just a good time. But
Yep.
one of the things that I recognized about you, Max, was how relational you are. And a- as I bring that up, it makes me think about you in business. You strike me as a person who leads from a place of relationship versus from a place of being transactional.
Sure.
How has that served your business over the years?
Sure. Another great question, Steve. You know what? Early on, and listen, I'm guilty of it too. Don't get me wrong. When I started out, like, you don't know. You think of, when you're not doing a lot of deals, right? You're trying to
Hmm.
scrap together little deals here and there. So your mindset is you are kind of thinking transaction. You're like, I need the next one. I need the next one, right?
Mm,
But, like as you get older, as you learn, as you meet people, as maybe you lose people,
yeah.
maybe a bridge does get burned, or you have a falling out with a client, like you learn this business is all relationships, right?
Yep.
And to maintain a relationship doesn't really take a lot of really anything monetarily if you really think about it, right? So, you know, if you can realize that, and just maybe you cultivate maybe your top 10, or you call someone, or you shoot them a text, or anything. Maybe, I had a guy, he used to play in the Celtics, then he became an assistant coach for the Golden State Warriors and the Phoenix Suns. Now he's an assistant coach on the Sacramento Kings. I would sometimes I would text him. I would say, "Hey, man, I was thinking about you, or I meant to call you." and he was like, "Man, anytime you think of me, shoot me a text or a call." You know, and I kind of like it. Kind of stood out to me. You know, if you're thinking about this person, there's a reason why that this person is, you know, getting, you know, brought into your head, your universe, or however you want to look at it.
Yeah.
And you know, there's a reason why. So I try to, you know, as well as I can, you know, reach out, text, call, email, you know, maybe send a meme. You know, nowadays people send memes, right? But just something to maybe just, you know, hey, bring you to the forefront. Hey, I'm thinking about you. Um, Keep me in mind. And it doesn't even have to be business, honestly.
Right.
Because sometimes you don't even want to talk about business. Like maybe you want to talk about your kids' sports, right? You want to talk about, hey, that was a nice meal I saw you posted on Instagram. Where was that? Or just something like small that they know that you're paying attention, and you know. And with social media now, you can do that, right? Like, so there's really no excuse not to be in touch.
And Max is really about being organic, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, it's not necessarily a tactical approach.
No.
You know what I'm saying? It's not about tactics and strategy, and
Yep.
you know, it's about being organic and just being a human.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
you know, I frequently have this conversation with my team about the importance of of being relational, but not from the standpoint of looking to see what can I get from it.
Yep.
You know
Exactly.
what I'm
Now, what
saying?
can you do for me?
Yeah, because you know, at the end of the day, we all sense that vibe, that
Absolutely.
energy when that comes through the door. You
And
know what I'm
honestly,
saying?
you can sniff that from a mile away,
Yeah, big time,
easily.
big time, big time. And so it's important to just be organic, just be a
Yep.
human, and really look to give good vibes, and in return, at some point, perhaps not, something may come of it. But
Exactly.
it's cultivating that garden, isn't it?
Exactly. Exactly. And I love that you said cultivate that garden, because not many people in that are my close friends and friends in Mass know that you know I am a big gardener. I have a big garden.
Really?
And out yeah. And before we got on, I was out there this morning.
Wow.
But yeah. So that's one of my things that I do to kind of grounds me in the morning. I wake up, I go down to the garden, and
That's awesome.
I'll send you some pictures offline. But
Please do.
I grow everything from anything that you can grow. I grow it in this zone, in this hardness zone. So
How many years have you been doing that?
I've been gardening since I was a kid. My dad always had a garden growing up, and he would probably kill me now that I'm telling you this, but he used to have tomatoes, hundreds of tomatoes, and we used to have these hedges. So me and my buddies, this is I probably shouldn't be saying this, but we would take some of the green tomatoes, and you know sometimes there would be cars coming by. We were maybe like 10 years old.
I just took a sip of water. Thank God I had the thought in my mind to hold it in my mouth, because
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
just about to go all over this computer.
So yeah, you know, like you
Yeah.
know, so but you know, I hung out. You know, a lot of my guys, like all the kids I hung out with, you know, they're all baseball players, all you know. So we're like, oh yeah, just so you know, doing what kids do.
That's right. Yep.
But yeah,
Yep.
so as a kid, and you know, now I have one, and you know, it's good. You know, like I think everyone, or not, or yeah, maybe everyone or every kid or learn some sort of gardening or growing things, because it teaches you a lot. You know, you got to care for it, you got to water it, you got to, you know, keep an eye after it, you know, and then you start seeing it grow. And once you start seeing it grow, you know, you realize all that work you put in is paying off. And, you know, it's like you said, it's you can even equate that to business, right? Like you sow those little seeds, right? Those little tiny carrot seeds. And then, you know, 20 days later, you get all these little sprouts. And then soon enough, you know, you have these big, you know, fruits that you sowed months and months before, you know?
I've always found it interesting that once you know one thing, you come to know many things.
Yeah.
And I think that's just such a valuable lesson to learn when you're able to dedicate yourself to a practice such as gardening, a
Yeah,
practice such as, I don't know, yoga or whatever you may do, but how, in fact, knowing that one thing, you can take that one thing and then go and apply it to many other things in your life.
sure.
It's just extraordinary how
Wow,
it all works.
I didn't even think of that, but you're so right. You really can.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Mm-hmm.
just small things all add up.
Yeah.
And anything you do, even if it's negative things, right?
Yep.
You're doing a lot of bad things, and that turns into something bad. So
Yep.
they always say you reap what you sow.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely.
So
Absolutely. Let's talk about your baseball years, man.
yeah.
You spent that's a huge part of your life, and I would imagine it's a big part of who you are, perhaps even still today. But you played at Stonehill College,
Yep.
and were there any practices that you took away from your time as an athlete that you now apply to your business? Kind of going back to that theme that one thing leads to you knowing many things.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, being a college athlete, as obviously each sport's different, but still, you're away from
Hmm.
home, you're with, you get a new environment, you're with people that you don't know. So you learn your team becomes like your family, right?
Hmm.
And you learn that quick. And, your teammates become your brothers. Maybe there's some teammates you don't necessarily like, but for the most part, they're your brothers, right? And
Yep.
it's you're a family, so you have that close knit team environment, right? So that was one, right? Being a team, right? Leaning on the next guy because you can't always do it by yourself,
Yep.
right? And you know, coming from high school, whereas when you're in high school, you're a young guy, but you think you're the guy, right?
Yep.
Because you have that, you're that cocky, you might be the best player from your part of the country or in your
Yep.
small little zip code, right? But when you go somewhere else, things change. Everyone is good, right?
Hmm.
You learn, you know, how to, 'cause in baseball especially, you're not always going to succeed, right?
Yep.
The game is built for you to fail.
Right.
And how do you deal with failure, right? Is a big
Mm.
thing. I feel like baseball teaches, and well, in any sport, right? But baseball is such a long season. You have a lot of games. You can go on stretches of failing, 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 failing. You can go on a slump, and how do you get out of it? How do you react to failure? Do you let it consume you? Do you let it, eat you up? Do you have a short memory? Right? They always preach short memory, right?
Yep.
Which I preach to people, right? Because you can't always dwell on things that, well, one, you can't control, but if something bad happens, let it go, move on, right? Think
Mm.
about it for a little bit, get rid of it, because if you keep letting it fester and grow, it's going to affect the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. And in sports, the only person that can really get you out of that slump or whatever you're going through is your own self, right?
Hmm.
So dealing with failure, team environment, having a schedule, right?
Mm. Yeah.
We had a set schedule. We would have 6 a.m. practice Monday, Wednesday, Fridays. Then we do team lift, and then in between those, Tuesday, Thursday, we were doing team runs. This is in the off season, right? But the team was always together, right? We were always a tight knit group, a unit, and that is one thing I preach that even at because I also coach youth sports.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
coach little league too.
Yeah.
And I always tell the kids, I'm like, hey, you know, be a good teammate, pick your teammates up, and don't, if you're doing very well, don't get too cocky. But if you're doing
Yep.
really bad, don't, don't stay in the gutter, stay in the middle. And
Yep.
you could equate that to business too, right?
Yep.
Say, hey, in real estate too, especially,
Yeah.
hey, you did 5 deals in a row. Shoot, I'm
Hmm.
thinking about buying a new car maybe,
Right.
or right, splurging on something.
Yep.
But always remember those times when, damn, I might not even have enough money to pay my cell phone bill, or
Hmm.
those times when you were down. So stay in the middle, consistency, right?
Yeah.
Consistency is important because even if you might not see results immediately, they will come,
Mm-hmm.
right? They will come. It's like I said, it's you you're gonna what you put in is it's gonna pay off down the road. And
Mm.
I was actually chatting with another guy from our division the other day down in Naples, Greg Hyder from
Yeah.
Scottsdale.
Yeah, that's the
He
man
said,
right there.
right? Yeah, he's a good guy, great guy. He made a good point. We're sitting down. He goes, you know, when I'm working with a client, and they're maybe considering canceling a contract. He's like, I never cancel contracts, and I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, I've canceled contracts before, but he's like,
Mm-hmm.
no. He's like, you know what? Just because the results right now are not what everyone wants.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, we're still working, we're still putting the work in. I'm still giving you knowledge to make decisions based on the work that I put in.
Mm-hmm.
And I never thought of it like that. I was, I kind of viewed it as very black and white, either
Mm-hmm.
it's selling or it's not selling, right? But
Right.
what about all the other stuff in between that,
Mm.
right? So it kind
Yep.
of made sense. I'm like, Greg, you're right. Like, you are putting in work. So, you know, it does pay off, but it's not immediate
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Hey, sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes it is immediate,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll get that thing that just drops on your plate and you're like, oh my goodness, like where'd this come from? But hey, maybe it was something you did a few months ago that you forgot about,
Yeah.
right?
I wanna go back real quick to the point that you made about consistency
Mm-hmm.
and the importance of it.
Yeah,
And how you apply that to business, because that is so important, especially as a person that is building a business. The reality is, and we'll love to hear your thoughts around this. The reality is that you could have a great month
yeah,
and you're doing all of the right stuff, and then all of a sudden you get all of this business that comes of it. But suddenly you stop doing the things that got you there.
exactly.
And so you lose that consistency. Is that something that you've had to always look at yourself and say, okay, am I still doing the right things? Am I operating according to the practices that I put in place for myself to
Yep.
ensure that I'm going to be at least closer to a better future than I would be if I don't do it?
Yeah, and and I can admit it, I am guilty of sometimes not being consistent, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to get distracted, especially nowadays. You have so much stimuli from everywhere. Whether or not you're married with kids, social media, work, everything.
Mm-hmm.
So it's easy to get distracted, right? And I'll be the first to tell you, right? I struggle with that sometimes, being consistent. It's something
Mm-hmm.
that I have to make a conscious effort to do, right? To stay on task, to do the thing. But this is what I've come to realize is, when you're trying to do a lot of things, some things might fall through the cracks. So I try to focus
Mm-hmm.
on the
Yep.
things that
Yep.
I'm good at, right? The things that I know that bring me business and that I feel comfortable doing, right?
You put fewer things on your plate.
Fewer things, but focus on those few things,
Mm-hmm.
right? So, and for everyone, that's different. Maybe for some people, they like banging the phones, right?
Right.
Making those expired listing calls, or you know, other people, like for me, I like calling people, right?
Mm-hmm.
I like calling people towards the end of the week when I'm in the car, shoot the breeze with them for a little bit, catch up. So maybe we talk about real estate. Maybe we don't.
Right.
Maybe we don't even mention real estate. But, it's a quick conversation. It's, you know, a touch point. And for me, I view that as being consistent, right? That's one of the things that I like
Mm-hmm.
to do, as
Mm-hmm.
to be consistent. But like I said, everyone's different and we can all get better, right?
Yep.
You can always do more, right? But
Yep.
just make sure when if you're doing more, you're doing it the right way and you're not half-assing it, because if you're half-assing that, then you're half-assing another thing.
Yep.
and it's counterproductive. You know, focus on being consistent on what you're good at.
I
You know,
love that. I love that. Max, you're originally from Stamford, Connecticut. Did
yeah,
you grow up there?
yeah. So I was born in Manhattan, and
Okay.
yes, my mom's from Brooklyn, my dad's from Detroit, Michigan. But then we
Hmm.
moved to Stanford when I was, a pretty young kid, me and my sister. And then I grew up, yeah. So I grew up in Stanford, Connecticut, which is
Who's the
about
oldest?
myself.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll be 40 in September.
Oh, my man.
Yep. Yep.
This
So
big year.
yeah, huge year, huge. Yeah, so I'll be 40 in September. I grew up in Stamford, Connecticut, which is right outside of, it's a tri-state area. So
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
access to New York, when you want it. And yeah, it was a good place to grow up.
Yeah.
Good. It was a small city. It was diverse. You had a lot of different people. You had rich, poor. You had all races, and at one point, I remember there was a poll. It was rated the most diverse city in America, next like number two compared to New York City.
Hmm.
Right, and we know New York City is like a
Yeah.
melting pot of everyone. So I grew up around a lot of different types of people at a young
Yeah.
age. And that's one thing I take away from Stanford is a great place, good people, um, great town for sure. The tagline is the city that works.
There you go. I
Yep.
like that. So, did you know anyone in the real estate business there or who invested in real estate that you began to watch growing up?
You know what? This is funny. When I was a kid, um, I would be obsessed with reading the classifieds. Remember the
Mm,
classifieds?
that's right.
Like
Yep.
there was no Craigslist. There was the classified ads, right? And I would just look at the houses on the classifieds.
Mm,
And I would we grew up where I grew up. We grew up in a two-family house, and my parents. My mom was a teacher, my dad was a designer, but so like we sometimes we had a lot of money, sometimes we didn't, right?
right.
So I would always look at the classifieds and be like, oh man, that's such a nice house, and like a lot of my friends live in these really nice neighborhoods, and like I would see the for sale sign, and I would just always like real estate kind of always intrigued me, right? And
Hmm.
then I knew a lot of like family friends with like construction people, right? And then like some family friends were also like realtors, but my my love for real estate really didn't really happen until I was a lot older, you
Hmm.
know. Because as a kid I was just focusing on sports and like riding my bike,
Hmm.
and doing
Having
doing
fun.
kid stuff. Yeah, having fun. Exactly. Not playing Fortnite, that's for sure.
That's right.
You know,
so
unbelievable.
so you grow up and you get
Yep.
into the real estate business. Ultimately, you begin to learn your craft.
Yeah.
But who was it that really had an influence on your career? I know you mentioned the agent who
Yep.
brought you in essentially from the very beginning. Was that the person who had the biggest amount of influence on you, or were
Yeah, I
there
would say
others as
there's
well?
been a few. There's definitely been a
Hmm.
few. Beth Dickerson obviously being one of them because she gave me my shot in the business, right?
Yeah.
She, really put her neck out there for me and did a lot for me. Introduced me to a lot of people. Um, and then down the road, I would say honestly, my partner Allison Mazer. You know,
Mm.
she's an SC. We actually got introduced together from our old boss Beth,
Hmm.
and she had been in the business for a little before me, but she moved back from LA and we linked up, and we kind of always like worked together, but if we were on like a team, like
Yeah.
she would always bring me in on things, and or like if something she didn't want to handle, she'd like give me a little bounce pass, here's a little layup for you, or not necessarily a layup, but here's something you
Sure.
can work with, right?
Right.
It's up to
Right.
you to.
No, you're good.
Okay. So yeah, my colleague Allison Mazer, she kind of took me under her wing too, and she taught me a lot how to navigate the city, right?
Mm.
Because she was a little bit older than me, and like she knew everyone in the city. She knew all the restaurant people, a lot of the athletes, a lot of the club people, like all the artists, like all like the well-to-do people. She showed me how to navigate
Yep.
the city, and also taught me relationships are important,
Yep.
right? That's when I started realizing, okay, it's obviously, and my dad was always say this, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know, but you can't be a dumbass. But
Yep.
like,
Yep.
if you know a lot of people and you maintain good relationships with them, that can only benefit you,
Yep.
right?
Yep. We keep coming back to this theme of relationships, and it's just like it's so loud. It's like you're yelling it over a loudspeaker,
Yeah.
but you're speaking to this concept of building your network.
Yep.
You talked about how your partner, she has a very influential network that she can tap into, that she's tapped into, and how that benefited you, and now you have this very influential network of people. I mean, am I going down the right track?
Yeah. Yeah. No, it is. It's you know, and you realize, a lot of influential people hang out with one another, right?
Yep.
They're all in those
Yep.
because Boston's small. It's a small big city.
Right.
So a lot of people know they all talk, and you want to maintain a good relationship and a good reputation in the city, because if you don't, word travels and people are not going to want to work with you. They're not going to trust you. If you don't have trust,
Faster than social media, man.
yeah. Well, that's the
Hmm.
thing. A lot of things on social media are also it's fake too, right?
Hmm.
It's all just you know a dog and pony show, as they say.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Right. That's right. That's right. It's true.
it's a lot of it's fluff. A lot of it,
Very curated.
yeah, exactly, curated. There it goes.
Hmm.
1,000%. That's the word I was looking for. So,
So let's switch gears
okay,
and talk about the Boston market in of itself.
yeah,
Where are some of the neighborhoods you're encouraging your buyers to pay attention to
okay.
right now? What are you seeing?
Okay, so I do a lot of business in South Boston.
Yeah.
South Boston, as you know, very popular in like movies and um, a lot of new development there. A lot of young people going in there. A lot of new construction going on. A lot of new
Hmm.
restaurants going in there. It's a very popular neighborhood. So I feel like depending on the demographic, where they're coming from, I try to lean maybe South Boston or the Seaport is a brand new, pretty much neighborhood in Boston. As you know, Boston's
Mm,
very old. A lot
right.
of buildings are built in the 1800s.
Yep.
Seaport basically was at one point a parking lot, right? And you had a
Mm,
couple buildings there. Now it's all high rises and a lot of newer condo buildings, like very like high end amenities. Um, there's also a building called Winthrop Center, which is a great building for the city. Um, Pretty much brand new. There's a lot of there's a few athletes that live there. Um, Indoor pool, like just it's like New York City style, like
mm,
amenities. But
yeah. Yeah.
and then depending on like if you have a family and depending on suburbs, if you want to be in the suburbs, the South Shore is always great. Um,
Yep.
or also like the western suburbs like Newton, Weston, Wellesley.
Hmm.
Those are all great towns. Obviously, they're expensive, but um, great towns for sure.
Yeah, yeah. What about those blue chip neighborhoods like I think your Belmonts, your Cambridge? Are you
Okay.
seeing much opportunity there?
Yeah. So um, Cambridge is very expensive.
Hmm.
Cambridge is a very expensive, old, kind of traditional town. I would say the up like the blue collar up and coming right now is Chelsea,
Hmm.
East Boston. Um, Obviously, if you even go a little bit further than that, like Revere, like now we're talking blue collar, right?
Hmm.
Um, but Belmont is more, kind of a little suburban. Actually, we have a listing right. We have a listing there now. That's close to Oakley Country Club. It's a very quiet town, very nice, close to the city, good school system. They have
Hmm.
a really nice private school there called Belmont Hill. But great town. Like this, the thing is, right? Boston, as you know, as a proper, isn't that big, and especially I think. Don't quote me on. I'm going to say maybe around 700,000 people in the proper.
Hmm.
But when you go to the greater Boston area, you have all these highly densely packed towns surrounding the city. So like Cambridge, Somerville, Medford, those Belmont, those are all their own towns,
Right.
right? So then, it's then the population grows.
Mm.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
like I said, the proper itself isn't as big as everyone thinks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, not such a bad thing. I mean,
No.
I would imagine, I'm sure you guys get your traffic too, but perhaps it's not Washington, D.C. traffic or New
Whoa.
York
Well,
City
I
traffic.
beg to differ. I beg to differ.
Okay.
Whoa, Steve,
Whoa, hold
Steve.
on there. Hold on.
Hey, no, I'm telling you, there was some list the other day. I think we rated like top three in America. It's terrible, honestly.
Woo.
And I'm not joking. Like, I'm not saying this just to joke.
Yeah.
Like, honestly, around 3 o'clock, you don't want to be on the road. You want to either
Mm-hmm.
be waiting to go to your destination or at your destination because at any time from 3 o'clock on, you're going to be in gridlock. Really,
Woo.
it's bad. And I will say this: when we had COVID, the one good thing about COVID was no one was driving, so you can get to where like the times
Yep.
were true.
Yep.
Like if it took 15 minutes to get there, it would be 15 minutes.
Yep.
Now it's like, if it's 15 minutes, tack on another 30 minutes.
Woo.
Like last weekend when people were going away from Memorial Day, like you can pull up your phone and look on the map just to see the
Yep.
traffic. It looked like a red spider just going in every direction
Oh
of traffic.
God.
Yeah.
Woo.
It's not great, and I think what's causing it too is a lot of the rideshare programs.
Yep.
Everywhere you look, there's an Uber, Lyft, and they have the things in the windows so you can tell, but they're everywhere. And our public transportation doesn't work. Like the T, the
Mm.
which is the subway, is constantly breaking down. The cars are catching fire. They they're closing tunnels. Like it's a mess. So no one
Mm.
takes the public transportation.
Mm.
So
Well,
they got to work on that. The infrastructure here it's dated.
sounds like you need to run for mayor.
I don't know about that one.
Look,
uh,
so let's talk about for sellers. What is the market
yeah.
like right now? Is it a good time to sell?
So it's always a good time to sell.
Mm.
Right. The only thing is some sellers need to be more realistic on their pricing. Right.
Okay.
Because money is now a little bit more expensive than it used to be for people that are getting financing. So
Yep.
some
Yep.
sellers are still caught in that. Oh well, they want to get them. Obviously, they want to get the most money. We know that, but being as a seller, you have to just be a little more realistic in pricing,
Yep.
and have good marketing right now. But sellers, it's always a good time to sell, especially in Boston because you do have a lot of investors in this market, and investors might not be getting loans. So
Mm.
if it's a good deal, someone's gonna buy it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just things are just moving a little bit slower than normal or than
Hmm.
we were used to because it was going exponential for like 10 years straight, just
Oh, it was
everywhere.
bonkers. Yeah.
Yeah, just flying. So you listed it. It was like you list the property on say midweek, right? You don't do any showings until maybe you do open house Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Best and final offer due Monday at 5. You have 20 offers,
Hmm.
right? You just literally go into 20 offers and you just give them to the seller. Hey, here you go. Pick your
Yep.
best three. Then you go back, best and final, and then people are doing escalation clauses. Then it's like
Yep.
then the number gets so ridiculously high. You're like, oh my goodness.
Yep. Yep.
So, but yeah, it's but I will say the luxury market like really really high, like maybe 4 and up. Like I'm seeing some of those trade, and a lot of those people
Hmm.
are probably cash buyers, right?
Yep. Yep.
Mainly.
Are you guys getting a lot of international buyers, or are
Um,
most of your buyers
well, I mean, we
within?
have in the past. I would say if I can take a snapshot right now of like our clients, I would say for the most part they're U.S.
Okay.
Boston.
Okay.
based. Yeah.
Do you guys have a feeder market?
Uh, well, I would say this in terms of feeder market, we do get some people from New York, that are relocating, like, or like the West Coast, like we get because Cambridge, right? There's a lot of biotech there, so um, Florida. I feel like we,
Mm,
we feed a lot of markets, right?
right.
Like
Right.
Naples is the feeder market. Like we feed Naples, we feed like West Palm, Miami. Like it's kind of and it's, yeah, we're kind of feeding people. But
Gotcha.
when I think of it, New York, a lot, people doing reload, the finance people from New York or California. Yeah,
Got it. Got it. Last couple of questions for you,
yeah,
Max. A
of course.
common theme that I've heard from agents across the country
Yeah,
that work with pro athletes is that not enough of them have been taking advantage of ownership opportunities
yeah,
within real estate.
yep.
Are you seeing that same pattern within your area, or has that thought process begun to change?
So great question. For the most part, the folks that I've worked with, um, they have their financial advisors, right?
Yep.
And you know, either that financial advisor is telling them, "Hey, you should buy this," or they're saying you should rent, right? So I
Hmm.
try not to step on those toes.
Okay.
If they call me up and say, "Hey," because those guys are the gatekeepers anyway, and I don't want to piss them off
Right.
because I want them to send me another client.
Right.
So, you know, do I think some athletes could be investing more? For sure, right?
Hmm.
But I'm sure that they have a process for that. So
Hmm.
I try to be, hey, listen, tell me what exactly you're looking for or you're looking to do, and I'll help you do that,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
Um, but I would say this: some of the guys that are retired, now you see them getting into some investment
Mm.
ventures, right?
Right. Right.
Doing some other things like for instance, there's a football guy. He used to play in the Colts. He's Boston based. His name is Goster Churlis. He went to BC. Absolute legend. Played in the league for maybe 10 years, but
Hmm.
now he's in to real estate investing, um, doing a lot of commercial stuff.
Yeah.
But a guy like him, had a good NFL career, and then now is killing it in the real estate game, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's probably very smart with his money. Had all the right people around him, and now is really, you could argue, maybe making more.
Yeah.
I don't know any of that information, but but a guy like him is a good example of that, making that transition.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I also though I love to hear about guys like you, Ben Moss,
yeah,
Koki Adasi, some of the partner agents that you and I have within our division. Ben
yeah,
being in Miami, Koki being in DC, and many other agents across the
sure,
country. I hate to name so many names because I forget a lot of people, and I don't
yeah,
want to do that. But I know that you guys are teachers
yeah,
to your clients. And it's not just pro athletes because you work with more than just pro athletes as
yeah.
well.
Oh yeah,
But you are a teacher to your clients. You're constantly teaching them about not just the investment, the asset itself of real estate, but also the strategy that you would advise them to consider as it pertains to acquiring that asset or trading out of that asset. And so for that, I really do appreciate you, my man. And
of course.
I just wanted to make sure I shared that with you.
Appreciate it, Steve. Thank you, man. I appreciate you, brother. And like, how you said like you didn't want to not mention people or maybe forgot their names. Or you know what? This is a good thing about Naples was, you always see people's name on the email or the chat.
Hmm.
But down when I was in Naples, I was finally, connecting. Hey,
Yep.
oh, this is such and such. Okay,
Yep.
now I know what. So that's what made the Naples trip so good. I felt I left there with a lot more stronger connections than I went there with.
Oh,
You know,
a thousand
and
percent.
I was able to have some one-offs. Like me, I feel like you and I had a couple good
Yeah.
conversations. We
Yeah.
got to play some golf together.
Yep.
Eric Dungy, a guy that I don't get to see
Yep.
often,
Yep.
or even Stevie Lee from Texas, right? Like
Yep.
that guy. So it was good. Yeah, that was fun.
Max, any last remarks you would like to leave with the audience?
Well, listen, I would say this. I was talking with a girl the other day, and she was considering getting into real estate or finance. And I told her, I was like, listen, real estate is the best and worst job you could have. And I will say this.
Mm-hmm.
You have high highs and low lows. Stay in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get down on yourself. Don't get too high. Don't get too low. Stay in the middle. Consistency is key. And, what you 100% get out of it what you put in. And that's not up for debate. That's a fact.
Love that. Love that. Max Vigliotti, really appreciate your time, my man. Thank you
Steve,
so much,
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely.
All right. I'll see you soon.
See you soon, my brother.
All right, brother.
Can't stop, we can't lose. You can't win if you snooze. So do more and say less. So get up and let's work and be the best. Yeah, you're tuned in to the Steve Gunner Podcast. Yeah, the Steve Gunner Podcast. You're tuned in to the Steve Gunner Podcast.